So very briefly on my 3 minutes, my name's Chris Jardine. I'm the technical director of a company called Joju Solar. We're installers of solar panels, batteries, and electric vehicle charge points. So we're very much on the ground in terms of delivering these kinds of solutions. And I'll just pick up on some of the things that Nick was talking about in terms of what we might do to deploy renewable energy across the city. Thought I'd kick you off with my favourite pub quiz question of all time, which is, what is the highest place between Carfax and Moscow? The answer is Shotover, would you believe? Okay, so that looks like a pretty good place for a wind turbine, if you ask me. More seriously though, I thought it'd be interesting just to look at what a citywide deployment of solar panels might look like. Would seem incredibly ambitious, but I reckon there's 150,000 people that live in Oxford City, and that would equate to around about 70,000 households. Let's assume half of those roofs are usable for solar, the other half are going to be far too ornate to use, but that would be 35,000 homes that we could put solar on. To fully cover those by 2030 would be 3,500 properties a year. Okay, so it seems like a big challenge. However, my company, in our experience, we used to run some social housing schemes for councils, and back in 2015, we installed 850 solar roofs for Lewes Council in 3 months, okay, which would be around about 3,000 a year. So what might look like a really insurmountable challenge, I'm looking at saying, yeah, actually, my company, just my company, could do all of that, okay? And that would be a nice contract, please. But the key point here is that really about the role of the private and the public sector. The private sector is there and is kind of ready and able to deliver on some of these really grand ambitions. I think that it asks questions about what is the role of government and what is the role of the private sector. So those 35,000 houses would probably cost something like 350 million to cover in solar panels. No one's expecting the city council to stump up that kind of cash. But there are ways in which the council could perhaps set up a framework to allow that to happen, either through legislation on new buildings, for example, legislation on the rental sector. So there's a lot of stuff that they could do for free that would then enable the private sector, and also, I should say, the community energy sector, to come in and deliver those solutions, and we have the capacity to come in and do that. I'll just leave you with one final thought going forward, not just for this session, but for all of the sessions, which is the phrase, be reasonable, demand the impossible. And what I mean by that is, if your child was in a burning building, you would be saying, we've got to do everything, anything, whatever, just get my child out of that building. The fireman would probably go in there and sort it out, because it's his job to do that, okay? So I think the same thing applies when you're faced with an existential problem like climate change, is that the only rational and sensible thing to do is to demand big solutions. But they're not impossible, okay? They might seem impossible, but actually there's plenty of people out there whose job it is to just go ahead and make that happen. So you can be quite confident in being quite